What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about X. So X is a brand new A24 film that takes us back to 1979, written and directed by Ty West and starring people like Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, Kid Cudi, Brittany Snow, and many others, and tells the story of a group of individuals who are actually going to secretly make an adult film that they think is going to completely revolutionize the porn industry. What ends up making this a weird situation, though, is that they're doing this in some rinky-dink cabin that's on some land owned by these two older individuals on their farm. And over the course of the film, the two old people start to kind of give them some trouble. I won't get too far into exactly what happens in this movie because that's part of the surprise, but if you've seen the trailers, it's pretty clear that it's these individuals that go to make a porn, and specifically the wife of the husband and wife duo that live on this farm. They start to cause some problems, and it starts to turn into a full-blown horror film. And if you've seen a lot of A24 films, you know that they're well known for really over-the-top, really ridiculous, artsy-fartsy horror films or dramas. Sometimes there are films like Ex Machina or Hereditary that I end up loving, and then sometimes there are films like Lamb that I saw a few months back and I was not a huge fan of, or things like It Comes at Night. It's always hit or miss when it comes to A24. You can have a film that has phenomenal performances, phenomenal cinematography, and a lot of fantastic technical elements that can be really divisive in its audience. You can have individuals who feel like the film is fantastic, some that think it's middle of the road, and some that think that their films are absolutely downright terrible. And this is another film that I think is going to have a very similar reaction. Coming out of the theater, I saw it with 4 individuals, including myself, and there was a mixed bag of thinking it was a steaming pile of shit, me thinking it was, pretty good at times and enjoying it, and others thinking that it was pretty middle of the road. Overall, I found this film to be a very well-made film, so I want to start this off by praising the technical elements of this film. This film, like I said, takes us back to 1979 and very much feels like a film from the 70s and 80s. If you're a huge fan of horror films of that time, specifically things like slasher films, there is a lot about the genre of that time frame that is definitely present on screen here. There's a lot about the way that the film looks and feels that very much takes you back to that time. The soundtrack definitely takes you back to the 70s and 80s as well, and everything about the filmmaking element about this film was something I really thoroughly enjoyed. There's a lot of really great use of specific camera angles and cinematography that I really thoroughly enjoyed from beginning to end, and the performances were really great from beginning to end as well. On top of that, you also have a really great use of special effects, both practical and digital, mostly practical over the course of the film, and I really enjoyed the gore effects and a lot of the lighting also used throughout the course of the film. So I think it goes without saying that the look of the film for me was really, really strong. I really thoroughly enjoyed that element about the film, and without a doubt that was what really kept me engaged, as well as this very bizarre premise, which is usually where A24 tends to shine. It's the bizarre premises. But ultimately, in a lot of ways, this film kind of fell flat for me in the sense that it does feel like a run-of-the-mill slasher horror film, just with a lot of more modern elements, or modern elements that are able to highlight past elements of filmmaking. Like I mentioned, this film does kind of take you back to filmmaking elements of that time, using a more artsy approach from modern filmmaking to kind of, execute that look and that feel. And that was the element I enjoyed the most about it. But outside of that, a lot of the characters did feel very one note, and there was a lot about the story that kind of left something to be desired. Also, you have Mia Goth as our main star of the film, but honestly, I struggle to really feel if this film actually had a real protagonist or leading role in the film. She is kind of the leading role, but there are times where the story really focuses on other people, and it just kind of feels like everybody's the main character, but that there's one singular person that they're kind of focusing on, but they're not really the main character, which was my biggest struggle with this movie, is that once they actually get there and things start to go weird, it just really kind of feels like a bunch of people who are just kind of lined up to die, and a movie that doesn't really have a whole lot of story. But I was really engaged throughout. There were moments where I was laughing, there was moments where I was definitely engaged in what was happening, I was definitely intrigued to see where it was consistently going. So on that level, I do think it's worth watching. I do think it's an intriguing film. I think if you are a fan of horror films, specifically things like A24, there's definitely a lot to be desired here. And I did really enjoy the social commentary that this film had, which was pretty much, you know, there are a lot of elderly people in this world today who see a lot of young people in the world who are very sexualized today, or out there living their lives, wearing whatever they want to wear, doing whatever they want to do. And the world is very different today than it was back then. So it is kind of frustrating for a lot of people, and they do tend to lash out on younger generations. Overall, I enjoyed the film for what it was. It's not a film that I'm jumping to rewatch again. It's not one of my favorites of the year, but it's not one of my least favorites of the year as well. There's a lot about the technical elements of this film that I did really thoroughly enjoy, but when it comes to the actual story and characters, I don't think there's a whole lot here to really run back and rewatch. I do think this is a movie that is fun to watch just for a one-time viewing, something that can get a reaction out of you. There were some funny moments in the film that really kind of got a good reaction out of people in the theater, but I do see a lot of people watching this movie and actually really enjoying it. I think depending on the kind of audience member you are, there are elements to take away from this film that you may really thoroughly enjoy. And yeah, I think that this is just going to depend on the individual, as it is with most A24 films. So that's going to be my thoughts on X. A big thanks to you guys for watching. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts down below. Have you seen this movie? Have you not seen this movie? Subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.